to Bill Tower Seminar. Many of you know Bill Tower has been doing this for many years, and it's a great opportunity to hear from some of the really important people in motorsports racing, particularly endurance racing, and that have particularly also that have a history here at Sebring. So thanks for being here. And first off, before we get going, we're going to recognize a couple of folks. Your president and general manager of the Sebring track is here, Wayne Estes, right over here. Right in front. Next to us. Pratt Miller Racing are here. We can't forget somebody who's always very supportive of this event when we have the seminar, when Bill puts this on. Charlie Mendez, winner of the 78 Sebring 12 Hours and Hall of Fame member here at Sebring. Charlie Mendez. And been committed to the history of motorsports racing, Chevrolet going back, 60 years probably. I'm telling him a little bit. But Bill Tower, right here at the front. I'm going to miss somebody. Charlie, did Dave sneak in there? Did you see him? Yeah.
Dave is always late.
Dave is always talking about Dave Coward. He usually attends, but he'll normally be here. So what we want to do is we want to make the most of our hour. We're fortunate enough to have our guest of honor here for just a little bit of time to talk about his experience, his history, and obviously he's being recognized as a new entrant to the Sebring Hall of Fame, and that's our guest of honor, Ron Fellows. In case you didn't know, my name is Steve Hurley. I'm your MC. I'm a Chevrolet dealer here in Florida. A long-time friend of Bill Towers. Well, why don't we start off and talk just a little bit about, we talked about several things, when we kind of did a little bit of briefing, and yesterday you mentioned the kind of things that got you interested, Ron, in motorsports in the very, very beginning.
You have to go back that far?
Hang on.
Yep. Hello?
Bill, make sure yours is turned on. Push that button at the top. Push the button on top. There, Ron.
You got me?
There we go.
We got you.
Turn on those lights. There we go.
My statement was, do we need to go back that far? Anyway, yeah, the long and the short, very short version is, as a kid, the first car race that I went to was the Canadian Grand Prix at Ben Mosport in 1969, and that was the as an 11-year-old, if you can have an epiphany, I've said it before, I did, and I wanted to get on the other side of the fence somehow. However, as we all know, that's easier said than done. So, but that was really where it started. My uncle Chuck McLaren, he was the influence on speed anyway in cars. He rallied, and first with a Renault factory program in Canada, and then what was then Datsun. So that was so I actually got my racing license at Datsun 510 B sedan.
You did so much with Trans Am, and I don't know if you want to start with the Players GM Challenge, talking about that. But one thing that you mentioned that's very important in motorsports racing is sponsorship. And I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, because you mentioned something that we had all seen or were aware of, but I didn't really fully understand the impact. If you want to talk about the AER a little bit.
Yeah, and others. Yeah, so yeah, being the oldest of 5 kids in a household where my dad was an Anglican minister, Episcopalian. My mom was a teacher when she could with 5 kids. There was no money for me or my brother Rob to do any racing. We couldn't save to get a go-kart. And my dad was the smarter one. He's like, I see this really does require a great deal of money. And I can't help you with that. I can help you with other things, moral support, but that was the issue. And it didn't sort of stop the dream, but it did halt things for a few years in the 80s when I was basically broke and heavily in debt from going from I ended up doing Formula Ford, now Formula 1600, I guess, but it was, a few years of just misery of continuing to dream of being a racing driver and it not happening, and being early 80s and interest rates being what they were then. I was about $50,000 in debt. So, but I worked at a natural gas company for about 10 years, and that was paying at least keeping the creditors at bay, but no racing for I think a good 5 years, 4 for sure. And General Motors in Canada in the late 80s, it was a real boom period where the tobacco companies got involved with manufacturers and players, and Imperial Tobacco got involved with General Motors to do a showroom stock series with Camaros and Firebirds, F-Cars, the F-Car platform. Rothmans was involved with Porsche, and another tobacco company, Export A, was involved with Formula 2000. So there were when this showroom stock series for the Camaros and Firebirds came up, that was my entry back in. The car was about 20 grand, and you had to drive it to the track. That was part of the deal. And it paid $6,000 to win in 1986. So at the very first race, me and 75 other drivers showed up wanting that $6 grand win. And it was a terrific series, and I ended up struggling along but won a race in the first year, and that was really a springboard to the opportunity, because all three, and particularly the Players GM series, was really popular because of the closeness of the racing. We were on the production Goodyear Gatorback, I think it was then. And we were at all the big venues. We were the Saturday feature at the Montreal Grand Prix, Saturday feature at the Toronto Indy, Saturday feature at the Molson Indy on the Sanair Trial. So it was, it was a big deal and had great TV. And then I managed to get some sponsorship from Sunoco in Canada then, and also from a mutual fund company called Mackenzie Financial. And that gentleman, Jim O'Donnell, was a great mentor for me, and as a reward for winning a championship in the Players GM Series, he provided me some funding to do 2 Trans Am races, and that was, and I sort of looked around, who can I get a good deal with, and it was, at that time, it was Jack Roush seemed to be the guy who could do multiple cars and well. So I ended up getting an opportunity with Jack, and I think it was 2 races in '88, 2 in '80 or 3 in '80, 2 in '89, and I won one. And that was kind of the springboard in Trans Am, and that was Mackenzie that helped me then. And then 1990. I promise I won't do this chronologically. But this is an example of how important people are, and in them appreciating the level of passion that we all have for this business, and recognizing someone that does have some ability and needs the financial support to live the dream. And through Jack, I met Bob McGraw and his wife Ellen. They own a company in Addison, Texas called AER Manufacturing. And I was at the very first Trans Am race in 1990 in Phoenix, and I had nothing. And I just pleaded with Jack, something. I won a race for you last year. Come on. Anyway, let me see what I can do. And I ended up with, I think, 9 or 10 races in 90 with Motocraft and AER, and when I got the call to go to Livonia, Jack explained to me what the deal was, and there's this company called AER Manufacturing along with Motocraft, and they're real good people, and if they like you, they might stick with you. And AER has continued their Bob and Helen are godparents to a couple of our kids, and they are still 34 years later. Now they're helping my son in his racing. So it's there's a testament to relationships and the importance. And then there's Chevrolet. Getting the I didn't get a full-time ride in Trans Am until '92, and then in '94, the real turning point for me was winning the Detroit race on Belle Isle, and I was driving for Tom Dwight at the time, and the race I think was, I forget the actual name. I think it was the Chevy 200, and it was Detroit was a big deal for the Trans Am series to obviously showcase on the streets of Detroit and then Belle Isle. And so in my Ford Mustang, I won the Chevy 200. I think that's what it was called.
He messed it up.
And literally on the podium, Herb Fischel was presenting me the trophy, and out of the side of his mouth he says, "How do we get you in a Chevy?" And I'm like taking the trophy from him and said, "Just call." So that started the process, and then got under contract with Chevy, got a 3-year deal. Yeah, and it was awesome. Yeah, to get a 3-year deal in Trans Am, and that's really where I first met Gary and then Robin. We ended up, everybody was pretty much the standard in the Trans Am series then was Riley and Scott chassis, and Buzz McCall, who was the team owner, Will Moody, the engineer, team principal of American Equipment Racing back then. They put their faith in Pratt Miller, and we had, so our chassis were, with the Camaro in 95, 96 were Pratt Miller cars. So that was really where that relationship started. And then, our first year we won 5 of 11 races with that car. Yeah. So, however, did not win the championship, if you can believe that. We won the Jamie Gallus was my teammate. He won a race. We won the manufacturers, but I had 2 DNFs that cost us the driver's championship. But maybe what you remember 30 years ago. Anyway, so the next phase was at the end of the '96 season, and I still had a year on contract. Joe Negri and Herb basically told us that they were pulling the plug on Trans Am, and for numerous reasons. And I'm like, oh, good, we just bought a house. And when you look at the history, when a manufacturer gets out of particularly then sports car racing, Trans Am, whatever, it's several years before they would ever get back in. And however, a year later, that's when I was at the end of my, and Herb and Joe, particularly Herb was very encouraging. Hey, try some other stuff. And so that's when I got the NASCAR bug and did a few NASCAR races. So 97, I ended up winning a truck race and got an opportunity to race at the home track in a Ferrari 333 with Rob Morgan, and for Andy Evans' team, we won. And so that September of '97, my stock was decent, but my contract was up with GM, and that was when I was summoned to Detroit and met with Herb and Joe, and they told me about this, taking a Corvette to Le Mans, and we'd really like you to lead that and be part of it. And I thought about it for a nanosecond. I'm in. Le Mans? Are you kidding me? Yeah, so that's, and they said, however, we got a lot of work to do. You know, we're not gonna, this was the fall of '97, we're not gonna race until Rolex 24 and '99. And then, obviously from then on, it was a terrific relationship with Gary and Jim and Robin and the entire team at Pratt Miller, and watching our collective growth. I've joked about it before with Gary, where the very first test we did here in November of '97, it was a pickup truck, a trailer, and 4 guys. And we had a C5 then that we couldn't get out of our own way. But obviously a lot changed, and there were numerous opportunities that came along, because of the relationship. It's now almost 30 years with, this would be 29 years, yeah, with having a contract with Chevrolet. How about that? Yeah. So yeah, very, very proud, and that was one of the things I admired about Earnhardt Sr. And then when I was young, I got a chance to meet Jackie Stewart. I saw here's 2 icons that had this incredibly long and loyal relationship with the manufacturer, and it served them pretty well. And I'm like, well, I can get, that's what I want, something like that. And didn't win a world championship or anything, or a NASCAR title, but we have done very well, and in terms of making a living as a racing driver. That's all I wanted to do. That was from that moment at Mosport in 1969 was, I want to do this. And it was just an incredible burning desire that it's still there, but just not as capable in your 60s. And I remember trying to figure out, why are drivers retiring? And I got it into my late 40s, and racing at night's tough, and night vision's not quite what it once was. And, the mortality gene starts to kick in, but I was able to do my last Le Mans at the age of 51, so that was pretty good. And again, a testament to the patience of the team of helping the old guy. Well, we're going to get you better lights on the car.
Ron, if I could, I'd like to take you to the Texas race, because back in the late 90s, you were talking about Gary and Robin, and back in the late 90s, the domination at the time was Viper. And there was this race coming up in Texas. Can you share with us your thoughts and why that happened and your feelings around the time?
Yeah, no, it was, we were 99, our first season, jumping in the deep end. We, our debut race with the C5R, with a wrench on the car and everything was the Rolex 24. We managed to finish 3rd in class, but it was certainly a struggle. However, we obviously learned a ton, but we were not doing a full schedule. So there were, and we were not doing a full schedule in 2000. And there was, we were looking at, I think it was about midway through the season, and we're obviously all of us, Gary, Doug Feehan, me, we're like, we need to do more races. We got to do more races. And the Texas race, we just about won one, and it was a race that we weren't scheduled to go to. We went to, and it was my home track. and I remember talking to Joe Negri, and Joe, we're going to win on my home track. I guarantee it. We didn't. It was one of those things. It was close. Yes, thanks, Gary. But literally, I'm driving away from the track after the race, and Joe Negri calls me. You guaranteed me a win. I'm sorry, Joe. However, he was, in jest. But we ended up talking about to go to Texas Motor Speedway, which was a Roval, the first one, and with the American Le Mans Series then, and it was a new event, and it was not on the calendar, and I'm like, Joe, we need to go to that. we got a great team here. This is a place where nobody's been to before, and I really believe we can do it. Well, I just don't have the funding. What more do you need? So he gave me a number, and I went to Bob McGraw at AER, and he helped out. So we were able to go to Texas, and guess what? We got our first win for Corvette Racing. Yeah. So that was part of the history there.
Yeah, wasn't that the track
Oh, yeah.
where it was a little bit, talk about how it was a little bit hot at that track.
Oh, it was awful. Yeah, it was a night race. Steve Cole, who's our engineer on the 3-car back then, I generally started the races because some of it was when Johnny O'Connell came on in 2001. He was as superstitious as it gets, and he started. Okay. Anyway, I ended up starting. Steve would have this habit of giving me, and again, this is just reference for how to manage the tires, and he would always give me an ambient temperature on the pace lap as well as the track temperature, and he's like, "Are you ready for this?" Warming the tires up, and it's freaking hot in the car already. Track temperature or ambient was, I think it was 114 or 116, something like that, and he said track temperature, I'm not sure where he was measuring it, but it was something like over 160 degrees. It was just insane. And anyway, it was an eventful, we got fried, I got heat stroke, and we ended up winning our first race. So, again, there's AER being a partner and continued on, and just because they wanted to be part of it after the Texas race. So, but does business with General Motors too.
You really caught lightning in a bottle with Gary and Robin and Pratt Miller Racing, and you guys it seemed like at that time you just took off, and the popularity and the awareness of the success of Corvette Racing really kind of reached a new level at that time. What was that like, and why were things working so well? Because it just seemed like you guys had it going on, just had the magic at that time.
Well, the magic came from just hard work. The guy in the front of the room here is very, very quiet, Gary Pratt, but his mind is going 200 miles an hour, and he, very methodical and just terrific with the staff, and as well as Robin. It was like a family, and it was a privilege to be part of it. And everybody else was in the same boat. Everybody on the team, and it was we were focused on the benchmark then was certainly the Oreca Vipers, and we ended up. I think that we had a really great race, the Rolex 24 in 2000, where it came down to the GT cars for the overall win, and we were on the wrong end of the finishing second overall to the Viper, and sort of thinking, man, we'll never get a chance for an overall. But 2001, we went back, and I remember in the winter of 2000, leading up to the Rolex 24 in 01, was being in the shop and they're practicing pit stops and working on. We had a bit of a refueling issue in 2000, and that was all solved. And the week of the race, having dinner with the crew guys, and everybody was pumped. They were like, never felt more ready. And we went out and managed to not only get the class win, but an overall win. There's the watch. A huge accomplishment for the team to be that. We were one of the things that we learned in 2000 chasing the Oreca Vipers was, guess what, the long distance races are no longer conserving. That was 2000 was as fast as you could go every time you were in the car, curbs when needed, but that was that was how the pace changed, and been like that ever since. And certainly getting not only the first class win, but overall in 01 was massive. It's where we also had Dale senior and junior in the second car, and really 2001 was a breakout year. Yeah, we had our first win at Texas. That 4-car won at Petit Le Mans 2000, but the 2001 winning the 24-hour Rolex 24 was big, and we got our first class win at Le Mans that year as well. It was just it was the start of what do we got here, about 20. This is the 25th season, isn't it? Yeah. Just we remember the first quite well. And how many wins is it now? 107? Yeah. We had a celebration at Road America here a few years ago about when they got the 100th, and I was there representing the first, and the Texas Trophy was not that big, which you can believe. So they had that there, and there was this whatever it was quite an impressive trophy from the 100s, but it's okay. It was, it's just again a testament to everybody at Pratt Miller, and certainly the faith that Chevy Racing had and continues to have, and the platform has become I think a benchmark for other manufacturers in what they've accomplished and continue. You work really hard to get the first one, and but then it's maintaining that focus and mindset and work ethic to keep wanting to win and win championships.
To that point, Ron, how difficult was it? And I think I mentioned this to Gary and Robin a few years ago when we featured them in this seminar, but going from the C5 platform, you had so much success with the C5R, going to the C6R, how difficult was that? Or was it difficult?
No, actually, well, Gary would probably tell you better, but or even Bill for that matter, but the transition was pretty smooth. That was the C5 bar and the C5 production car. There was no interaction between race team and production. C6, that's where it changed. And I remember being in a group conversation, listening predominantly, where they had a conversation with the Corvette production team, and they basically, what do you guys needed with the 6th generation body style to be better? And that's really where the body shape and the pop-up headlights disappeared, was about going fast in a straight line, particularly at Le Mans. So it's been interaction with production and racing ever since.
It's interesting you mentioned that part of it, the connection between the production, because back in 05, Jan Magnussen drove a prototype C6Z06 at the Nürburgring track. And back then, what he explained from Denmark, what he explained was that at that time, it was the manufacturers that were more concerned about who had the fastest, what production car was the fastest at the Nürburgring track. And it was really between the engineers, and it wasn't really that public back then. But then all of a sudden, this American car company stepped up and beat Porsche, Mercedes, Ferrari, all these European manufacturers with that car, and he set a track record, which he made it very clear did not last very long. But that was the original Blue Devil. By the way, if you want to see that car, I know where that car is. It's in my showroom, so that's a pretty special car.
You want to give them your address?
Speaking of that car, we can't go too much further without talking about this. Many of you know about the RF edition, or the Ron Fellows edition. Corvette Z06 and the C6 edition. It was white with the red hash stripes. You could say, well, it's just another Corvette edition, but there was really more to it than that, because that was a time, as I mentioned, where Pratt Miller Racing and your success really took endurance racing and the type of racing that you did to a mainstream level in the U.S. So I've got my son's friends even here, Ray Austin, and I remember back when that car came out, what a huge deal that was, and that reached across the mainstream. That wasn't just only for gearheads and motorsports racing enthusiasts. That really was a big deal, and I've got a few questions about that car. First off, it was white with a red hash stripe, the Ron Fellows edition, and talk about what you feel like, what was the reason for that?
I don't know. I've been talking about retiring, and I think Gary Claudio was instrumental in wanting to do something like that. It had not been done before, and it came out of the blue to me, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And so it actually debuted at the Chicago Auto Show, and the reason I remember this is that it was in February in '07, and it won an award. And I met Bob Lutz for the first time in June of that year at a dinner, and I was sitting, fortunate I got to sit next to him. Apparently he wasn't happy, but that one won an award because there was some other vehicle they were launching that was supposed to win an award, but he sort of leaned over to me and said, you should be really proud that we brought that car out, and they sold out quick. Thanks, Bob. But no, that obviously, very honored to have something like that, and the really special moment actually happened here in '07, where I arrived at the track race day, and the cars were yellow, and then before the morning warm up, they changed the body. They put the white with the red stripe. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was. So I'm goosebumps just talking about now. We should have won, but we didn't.
There's that white car. Bill, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, that young lady right over there she was sergeant. She had everybody on every piece on that car, changing it to white, and it was just orchestrated so neat to be the honor of you, Ron. And I can't believe how you just made it so neat that you accepted it, and it was a startled thing to you, because I know you didn't even know nothing really about it, And
the good news is they all look the same when you're inside.
But that was so neat that the whole team got behind that, and when people get involved together, it's so much meaningful. And let me share something with Pratt and Miller. That's the way it was. It was one big family, and you better not stand out of the line. Somebody's gonna, that young lady over there itching the head. But that was a good time for Ron. I mean, on that deal, changing that white, and it started people when the car went out on the track too. They didn't realize that was his car that run all day before.
Some rumors that might have something to do with the Great White North or the Canadian flag. Of course, the red and white, the red hash stripes.
Yeah, they actually the team and Chevrolet, we got to run that same combination at the home track that year as well, which was really cool. So, and it was actually a third car. But anyway, it was. An honor. I still have I got to drive the first three off the assembly line. I signed the inside cover of the armrest, the console. There was 399 cars, and they had 400 and some spread around the boardroom at the plant, and and I just come from shoulder surgery. I was actually in I've had shoulder surgery on both shoulders, but this was the right one that I had in December, and this was January of that year, and I had to sign them all. It was awesome. I had
Surely they stacked the console lids, they didn't make you go from car to
yeah,
car.
we went through a lot of silver Sharpies, I can tell you that. But I did have an owner complain that his was a little sloppy. Well, it's an individual then, isn't it? But it was. Yeah,
It was told, Ron, that you actually took some of them pieces at your house and signed them. Is that true?
No, I did them all in the plant. Yeah,
Did?
yeah,
Okay.
I did them all in the plant. Yeah, but I got to drive the first three off the assembly line. I'd never seen an odometer at 0 before, so that was cool. But so I have the first one. The second one was sold in a charity auction, and then number 3, Bob McGraw has. So so they still have theirs. I think Bob's in better shape than mine, but anyway, I drive mine.
I would ask you why there were 399, but I think I know the answer. You'd probably say no idea.
No, it was because I asked that question because Gary Claudio was the one we're going to build 399. Really? Yeah, your car number is 3. I mean, 63. Everything's in multiples of 3. Okay.
Kind of interesting. I was wondering why. I always wondered why there were 399.
Now you know the rest of the story.
Can you talk a little bit to us today about Spring Mountain and how that came about?
Yeah, that was. I was retiring. Excuse me. I was retiring like a couple times, but anyway. The end of 2008 was going to be what was the end of the GT1 car, and the C6R was a badass race car. Particularly 07, 08, and they were, there was a time, and I'll use Le Mans as an example, where braking 4 minutes was a big deal in a GT car, and in 07 and 08, our race pace was in the 3 minute high 349s. 350s, just amazing, and it was also in the breakthrough for us with Michelin came here in Sebring in 03, where the 2 minute barrier was a big deal for GT cars here at Sebring, and we managed to get under that on a set of Michelins, and that was kind of, I guess we should use these. So when I was retiring, it was really about the 6th generation ZR1, and that I believe Bob Lutz was involved, but certainly Tom Wallace and Mr. Lutz, they were coming out with the most powerful Corvette they'd ever built, and it was 130 plus horsepower more than they'd ever had. Maybe we should offer driver training as part of the ownership experience. So they actually talked to me about.
So we, the 6th generation ZR1, we talked internally about doing an in-house school program for owners, but I'd met the ownership at Spring Mountain, actually with Gary and Robin and a few others. We had met. We'd been at Spring Mountain. Gary and I went golfing, but some of our wives and a few others did the school, and it was pretty Chevrolet and Michelin involvement, but I met the ownership, and it seemed like, this was a country club atmosphere. The infrastructure that they were talking about continuing to build there was pretty impressive. And so that's really where it started. So we started the school in October 2008 in support of the sixth generation ZR1 owners, and Michelin came on as well to support. And you think about when in 2008, 2009, the economy was not great, but we managed to get this done. And then fast forward to the seventh and now eighth generation cars, so it moved from not just the highest performance car, but we collectively, between Chevrolet and obviously based on what I'd seen and my chief instructor, Rick Malone, the opportunity to extend it to every single model of Corvette seemed like the right thing to do. There's a fee that an owner pays, but it's obviously heavily supported by Chevrolet. The owner pays a portion, and which helps them have a little skin in the game. But it's every single model, and seventh and eighth generation, it's done very well. So we started out with about 30 cars, 30 C6 ZR1s, and in 2024 we now have more instructors than we had cars back then. And the infrastructure has continued to develop as the school became more popular. They added more tracks, condos, garages, and so we're able to run three groups of, and 18 seems to be the right number. Groups of 18, that we played with different, with more, but 18 is a sort of intimate number, and so we're able to run three sections of track that are fully independent, have their own classrooms, facilities, maintenance facilities. So we're running three groups of 18 simultaneously, 4 to 6 days a week. It's that popular, and the C8 has been. The mid-engine car has changed the game. We in a group of 18, and every class that I'm in, it's one of the first questions we ask: how many first-time Corvette owners? And I think the least I've seen was 7. So in a group of 18, it's 40 to 50% is the norm. First-time Corvette owners, 7%. Yeah. So it's been awesome to be part of it and help with the ownership at Spring Mountain, and my chief instructor, Rick Malone, who is the same age as I am and has done some racing. He has done an absolutely phenomenal job, because I still live in Toronto, and help keep Air Canada in business, commuting from Toronto also. But yeah, it's been an absolute treat to be part of it, and it's amazing how it's 15 years. We've got the Stingray, and I can't say enough about the Z06. That is just the first time I drove it. At WeatherTech Raceway was in Minnesota, and I did 3 or 4 laps tops because I had to come in. I couldn't hold myself on the seat, and I remember thinking, man, this thing was like the C6 race car. How it feels around in terms of the grip level, and anyway, it was made some seat adjustments and felt a little tighter and back out. Anyway, it's just, and there's more coming. So it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be part of it. And I think we're in the several thousand Corvette owners a year come through the program. So it's awesome to be part of it.
We're back up. Can you hear? I don't know. Should I check? Bill, you had a couple. I know you wanted to talk about a little bit about your history. You want a couple things. Well, as the winter circle here, some of those things.
when he got sick and had cancer, Gary and Ron stood and talked, and he, stood up, and we all had it right here, and collected and helped him out, and because he was going through chemo and the problems that he was having. He's doing better, and but that fella there is really special to me. He comes by the museum, and I thought it was to come see the cars at the museum, but it's not. You know Dave James, he loves to eat. So we have to go, we call bellying up. We go belly up and get him strawberry shortcake, and when he gets back, he looks like a strawberry shortcake. But what I'm trying to pinpoint and show you how close the United Pratt & Miller really is. And that's why it's been so successful. And I don't think I'll ever see any change in it as long as Gary and Ron are involved. And it's just a blessing that I've been involved. I do the engines. I was involved in, I was more in Cadillac. And Cadillac had all the money. But I felt like that in the engine builder for y'all, I was kind of wondering sometimes if the engines were as good as what should be. But anyway, I was supportive of it with the engines through Cadillac. And Aero is one of the big factors that I contribute to the Corvette, especially under the car, and learned it from NASCAR. Actually, Bob Stemple, I don't know if you ever know Bob Stemple. He had me and Mr. Perkins, Jim Perkins, work on the Aero Coupe in the 80s. And we came in, because the Fords were so fast, Elliott, was at Talladega, and he went down 2 laps and come back and won the race, so that didn't look good with NASCAR. But anyway, I got involved with the Aero Coupe with Dale Earnhardt, and Dale won the first time out. They really did good with the Aero Coupe in '86, and he won the championship in it in '87 too with the Aero Coupe, and second in the next year. But I really, going back to Pratt & Miller, they were the people that people followed because they were so successful, and they were limited sometimes to what they had. And this is big player. He showed the ability to keep something that is great. He made it great because he figured out all the RPM ranges and shifting and stuff and made it smoother. He didn't tear the tires up. He did the limit. That car will tell you the limit that it will go. And Jim Hall always told me, and I worked the Chaparral program with Jim Hall, and he was a blessing to me. But I got involved with the aluminum motors in that, with Jim Hall and all. And he told me one day, he pulled me aside, and he said, I want you to know, when we go out first, I want to do that to the end, and we won't lose. What he's saying is the fall off. And Ron was that way too. When he raced, he was in consistence of, like, we put it in 4 or 5 segments of the time that his stint is. And you work those segments, if you keep it, you'll just gain on them immensely. You're not overdriving, you just let it have its head and go. Ron was the best that ever worked on that.
We got a little bit of time. questions. If you have a question, be sure to be loud to where everybody can hear you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ron. I'm a fellow Canadian. Came here just because of you and this beautiful race. All I want to know is, what is the scariest race you were ever in? Something brings back to Le Mans when you said in the rain, you're coming down the Mulsanne Straight, and there's a car crossways. I remember you talking about that. Could you maybe review that a little bit for everybody here? That story.
Yeah, it was 07.
Yeah.
07?
You remember it?
Yeah, he said he did.
Yeah, it was on the front straightaway, yeah. Yeah, no, without a doubt, the toughest and most challenging race is Le Mans. You know, it's almost 9 miles around. Conditions can be different from one end of the track to the other. But the 9 or 10 that I did, we had a real gamut of conditions. I think the first one we did in 2000 was one of the hottest on record. And then when we got our first win in 01, it was pretty wet. I think I did a total of 2 laps on slicks. Everything else was an intermediate or a full wet. And the 2 laps was, I went on slicks out and I into the chicane, put it in the gravel and drove it into the rain tires back on. But 07 was in the last 3 hours or so, it was an absolute monsoon. And then safety cars were very rare at Le Mans, and you just kept running. And we were doing really well in the wet, and it was as I was coming the front straight, I was following another GT car, and there was a massive puddle just before the braking area of turn 1. And I remember watching this car go through the puddle and absolutely completely turn sideways right in front of me. And I swore that when he went through this big puddle, we were probably going 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I saw the rear tires stop turning. And so when I went through the puddle, I put the clutch in and got through it. And that was the technique I used the rest of the race for dealing with sailing through puddles. But this thing was now sideways.
Yeah.
And I risked doing the same thing, but I remember braking and putting the clutch in. I had no idea why, but it worked. And you could actually, I used it to my advantage in other places where you're sailing at high speed, and to avoid the hydroplaning and locking in the rear tires in particular, I just put the clutch in and sail through, and then, yeah.
Was that the year you were like